All right, we can breathe again. Let's talk some Chiefs. Welcome to Monday Mornings with the Chief of the North. I'm Seth Kaiser here on RGR Football. And holy cow, I did not get a lot of sleep last night. The Chiefs survived the Titans 20-17 in a game where they managed to gain 422 yards in the air and only score 20 points. They had 29 first downs. I'm looking at this right now because the numbers really don't make a lot of sense. One turnover kind of explains it. 10 penalties for 69 yards explains it a little bit. Going 8 for 19 on third down explains it a little bit. But when you look at the box score of this game, it's genuinely baffling that the Chiefs only put up 20 points. Almost 500 yards of offense, held onto the ball for 41 minutes and 28 seconds, and they managed to win in overtime with a field goal and then needing to stop on defense. There's a lot to talk about, and I don't have a lot of time to talk about it, honestly, because the day job calls. But happy Chiefs win Monday to everyone. As you know, every week, what I try to do is I talk about a few of the things that I think are going to be some of the major storylines moving forward into the week. The first and largest storyline, which does not surprise anyone whatsoever, is going to be Patrick Mahomes. I wrote already here at the Chief of the North newsletter about Patrick Mahomes going full Thanos and his ability to create yards, how essentially won the game for the Chiefs. Now, I want to make something clear. I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes played his best game last night. I'm not convinced that he did. I need to look at the all 22 to kind of take a look because it looked like there might have been some opportunities there, some missed shots. My good friend Clint was texting me from the game, and there were a few times that it looked like Mahomes might have missed some open receivers. So I'm excited to watch that. But it really does come down to the fact that the Chiefs gained 164 yards on their two final scoring drives, and Mahomes accounted for 160 of them. And even more importantly, and this is one of the things that I wrote about in this article, which you can read at the Chief of the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com or bit.ly/Seth really hates money. Go check it out to get 60% off forever, $12 a year, et cetera, et cetera. What's interesting to me is of those 164 yards, he created 81 of them, almost half. What do I mean by created? Well, I mean plays like this. Like the first touchdown here on a play that makes virtually no sense. Mahomes identifies that they've got man coverage, that one of the safeties over the top is breaking on Kelce's route because they were bracketing throughout the day. Vrabel was terrified of Kelce. The fact that he managed to have 100 yards in those circumstances is relatively incredible. And Mahomes just makes something happen. He actually, when he scrambles out here, a lot of quarterbacks can get this first down here after identifying man coverage, seeing guys have their backs turned to him. But the way he manages to put Jeffrey Simmons in a clown suit here, despite him having the angle, and just, I mean, Mahomes in space is one of the funniest things in the league. And so just Mahomes, he went the full Thanos. That is going to be one of the main storylines of the year, given the fact that Josh Allen played very poorly yesterday in a game the Bills lost. I would say that puts Mahomes right back at the top of the MVP standings, probably next to Jalen Hurts. Although with Hurts, it's much more of a sum of all the parts rather than it just being Jalen Hurts carrying the team like the way Mahomes did last night. One thing I just want to note, and the article really talks about this, you really should read it. It's not just the fact that Mahomes was making plays like this, which he was. Or plays like this, where if you watch, on this big gain to Kelce, which Kelce made a sensational catch here. Mahomes gets his feet knocked out from underneath him at the very last second, still manages to push the ball there. But he was also making plays like this within the structure of the offense. You see right here, he has to go across the whole field with his reads and eventually see nothing's open there. So he's going to give the ball to Jerick McKinnon on a quick little angle route inside. And so he goes from left to right, going through three different reads, then comes back to the running back, delivers a ball on the money with velocity with a man in his face. Why am I talking about that simple check down type play? Because it is an excellent play within the framework of the offense. And that's what separates Patrick Mahomes from most playmakers. You have some guys who are among the best in the league at creating yardage. And you have some guys that are among the best in the league at operating within structure. Patrick Mahomes is arguably the best in the league in both. And it's an incredibly rare thing. And one of the things I wrote about in addition to him, going full Thanos, creating yards, how important that was to win the game, was that you should remember moments like this. One day, people are going to ask you what it felt like when these games were going on. And you can answer honestly that it was really stressful, but you also will be able to tell them what it felt like watching Mahomes basically just say, "Okay, guys, I got this," and carry them to the finish line. It really is, some I don't remember whether it's Emmanuel Acho or whoever it was talking about the fact that what people might have remembered watching Michael Jordan as prime, and I genuinely don't think those comparisons are silly. As someone who was a fan of the NBA during Michael Jordan's prime, those moments of just completely taking over a game, they're a rare thing. Make sure that you're enjoying them. There's a bunch of other things that I'm going to briefly touch on that I think are going to be some of the main storylines this week. Maybe some of them not quite as fun. The fact that the offense did struggle. They moved the ball really well. They kept stalling in the red zone. Some of it, really simple explanations, very poorly timed penalties, a couple drops, some self-inflicted errors. I do think Mahomes missed a couple open receivers. I'm looking forward to his film review this week to see whether or not that's accurate. So some of it's just still that same self-inflicted stuff they catch from time to time. Some of it is the Titans just played them very, very tough. They had good coverage down the field. That's why you saw Mahomes holding the ball. A lot of people are going to want to talk about the offensive line. I'm back and forth on that because most of the sacks that I saw Mahomes take, other than a couple, a lot of the pressures and that kind of stuff, it came after he had time to sit and survey for a moment, and his first couple of reads weren't open. That's more of a coverage thing. That's more of a route combination thing. The Chiefs, after seemingly against the 49ers and in several other games this year, having it kind of figured out, with this multiple threat offense, it felt at times like they missed Tyreek Hill last night. The ability to win quickly against man coverage, to punish defenses for really keen on Travis Kelce. JuJu Smith-Schuster had another good game, but there's just they're not getting a lot from Sky Moore at this point. That's been disappointing so far. I might have to start changing my tune on my anticipation for him, but right now they need someone else who can make teams pay for man coverage. Besides Mahomes scrambling, which, by the way, the scrambling work that he did last night, that's going to force teams to think twice about man coverage too. So that's important, but you want to have other things that you can do there. So on the plus side, Kadarius Toney looks solid in his first action. I might write a couple things about him. I don't know. He didn't see a ton of snaps or a ton of targets, but I might write about a couple of he had a great chip where he just absolutely laid out a defensive end. But that is them acquiring him is demonstrative that they understand they need a little more explosiveness on offense. Another thing that I think people should be talking about this week is the defense stepping up big. Now, some of that is the fact that the Titans were starting a rookie who just wasn't seeing the whole field. What would that game have looked like with Ryan Tannehill under center? It's hard to say, but it probably would have looked different. I do think, though, that there's two things to note. The first is that the defense, after kind of a rocky first half at times, defending the run in particular, they really, really came alive, and they made a bunch of tackles at the line of scrimmage. They forced the Titans into second and third and long situations over and over that they just couldn't handle. And that's the thing. You can't really expose the rookie quarterback if you don't first deal with Derrick Henry, as well as the read option stuff that they were starting to try to do. They did a great job with that. The run fits improved considerably in the second half. They did shift more to some heavy up front bear fronts with a little more meat up front on the defensive line. But another guy, I'm going to butcher his name, and he always tells people how to pronounce it. It's Kalen or Colin. I can never remember it. Saunders. I mean, he looked exceptional out there. He's been the Chiefs' best nose tackle this season. He's been better against the run than Derek Nottie has been. And he's also been a better pass rusher. He contributes a lot more in that area. I'm curious if they're going to start really feeding him snaps more and more here down the stretch. The secondary is something that I'm really looking forward to watching with the Chiefs. The return of Trent McDuffie, that's something to keep an eye on. I think people are going to be talking about. I don't think that he gave up a catch last night. Again, it was a unique game and unique circumstances. But anytime he was targeted, he was draped absolutely all over his receiver. That's encouraging to see. It was also encouraging to see the pass rush come alive late. Carlos Dunlap had an incredibly timely sack, which was one of those plays where you just needed a guy to win around the edge, and that's what they did. So there really is something to be said for adjusting to what your opponent is doing and then just shutting it down completely, because the Chiefs don't win that game without the Chiefs defense basically allowing no yards for all of the second half and overtime. I think the net yardage was that they got once you include the sacks that the Chiefs collected in overtime. I think it was like under 15 total yards, give or take. It's an incredibly impressive performance. They didn't let Derrick Henry dictate the game the way that they were trying to in the first half, and it allowed the offense to really kind of sputter and stumble and find its way to where Mahomes' heroics were enough to win the game. It was an impressive performance against a tough team that consistently plays them well, and now they get to kind of turn around and see what the Jags look like. I will be at Arrowhead for that game. It's going to be a blast. But in the meantime, we're going to be providing a lot more stuff for you here at RGR Football. Those are just some of the main storylines that I think people are going to be looking at this week. Keep an eye out for the Mahomes film review that's coming. I'm going to try to look at some of the things the defense did. Maybe I won't be able to help myself and write about Kadarius Toney. But in the meantime, you know what? The Chiefs are 6-2. Life is good. It's a good week to be a Chiefs fan.